The name echoed through Ridge's head like a cruel wind. Nick Marone. Half-brother. Rival. Enemy. The man who had taken so much women respect, years of peace. The man who had looked Ridge in the eye on multiple occasions and challenged him to act civilly while slowly undermining everything Ridge valued. And now he was a few meters from shore, being carried beneath the surface by a rogue current. Ridge's boots were firmly rooted to the ground. He could hear the splash of water, the frantic cries, and Nick's desperate voice. There was nobody else nearby. The beach was desolate, the sun was beginning to set, and Ridge knew, with a conviction that was etched into his bones, that whatever he decided to do at this moment would go unnoticed, unjudged, unpunished. He could walk away. He may stay. He could do absolutely nothing, and no one would ever know. He watched Nick go beneath the water again, his arms briefly breaking the surface before vanishing. Ridge took a step ahead. Only one. He did not yell out. I didn't shout for help. Did not reach for his phone. He just remained there, silent, breathing deeply as the seconds turned into minutes. They held a profound grudge against each other. It wasn't just about Brooke, but it was the wound that would never fully heal. Brooke had repeatedly served as the focal point for their antagonism. Ridge had her first, then Nick, and then Ridge again. A never-ending cycle of betrayal and heartache, broken pledges and hasty vows. But it was not just her. Nick had infiltrated Forrester Creations like an invading species, destroying everything Ridge had worked hard to create. He was brazen, belligerent, and reckless, and he won far too frequently. Ridge had seen him capture not only Brooke's attention, but also Taylor's, his father's, and even his son's adoration for a while. There had been clashes, shouts, blows, words that cannot be taken back. And somewhere in the midst of all that anger and vitriol, something within Ridge hardened. Some feeling of fairness, compassion had been dormant. He'd convinced himself that Nick was a virus that needed to be destroyed or at least quarantined. He did not belong. He did not deserve his family's devotion. He was anarchy personified, and now, the ocean now had him. Another splash. Another wail. Ridge's eyes followed the action and his jaw clenched. He had swum in these waters many times. He was aware of the direction the tide was pulling. He knew that if he stripped off his coat and jumped in, there was a slim chance he'd make it to Nick in time. Instead, he imagined what it would be like to turn back and stroll up the trail. To let the sea make its decision. Can he do it? Could he actually let him drown? Nick's voice rose again, a harsh, desperate plea laced with seawater. Ridge. That was the first time Nick said his name. This is not a broad cry for help. Not some vague scream to the universe. No, it was addressed to him. Acknowledgement. Recognition. Perhaps even hope. Ridge was stunned by what he had heard. The moment held. He had not moved. He had not responded. Nick's head sank once again beneath the waters. Ridge could feel his heart pounding in his chest. The moral compass that had long guided him felt corroded and shattered. He wasn't the villain. At least that's what he'd convinced himself. He was not cruel. Not like Sheila. Not like others who came and went in their lives, causing havoc in their wake. Ridge had always believed himself superior to that. A man of integrity even when he stumbled. But this was different. Nick surfaced again, gasping and barely above water. The struggle was weakening. His motions are slower. More frenzied. The ocean didn't mind who he was. It couldn't care less about their conflict. Ridge had a lengthy, agonizing thought about RJ. Of what it would mean to his kid to lose Nick. To know that Ridge had been present but done nothing. That his father had stood motionless while his uncle drowned. Ridge's fingers twitch. He merely needed to lunge forward. Only one decision. He could take Nick out, call for aid, and provide CPR if necessary. Even if he couldn't save him, he could say he tried. But another voice, cold and reasonable, whispered into his ear. What number of lives has Nick ruined? How many sleepless nights had Ridge had because of him? Brooke would cry indeed. But she'd move on. She always did. Taylor would understand. Thomas could even silently approve. And the world would continue spinning. Nick disappeared again beneath the surface. This time it's lengthier. Ridge did not move. He could only hear the wind and the waves at this point. No gasps. No splashes. Only the hollow nothingness of decision. He waited. 5 seconds. 10. 1 entire minute. The water has calmed. The water receded, and there was no sign of him. Ridge breathed slowly and quietly. Finally, he turned and began to walk away from the cliff edge. Every step felt heavier than the last. He did not glance back. The trip back to the house felt weird, as if he was observing himself from outside his body. The trail crushed under his boots. The sun continued to descend. When he reached the back terrace, he poured himself a scotch and sipped it quietly. Later there would be inquiries. Someone would soon notice Nick was missing. A boat was found drifting. There's a jacket on the rocks. The search would start. Divers. Helicopters. But not yet. Not now. Ridge stood alone on the balcony that night, viewing the cove. The wind has died. The sea is tranquil. He recalled every occasion that had led him to that decision. Every damage Nick inflicted. Every smug smile. Every betrayal. But he also remembered the sound of his name being called from the ocean with such raw desperation. And he reflected on how quiet it had been after. Days have gone. The news spread. Missing. It is assumed that the individual drowned. A memorial ceremony was held. Brooke burst into tears. RJ was inconsolable. Taylor looked at Ridge with inscrutable eyes as if she knew or guessed something he hadn't said. Ridge said nothing. Not to anyone. But the solitude started to devour him. He heard water at night. In dreams. In memory. He saw Nick's fingers stretch up, mouth panting for air, eyes filled with desperation rather than anger. And he saw himself standing immobile, deciding. The guilt did not appear all at once. It seeped in, gently at first, like a wave lapping at the boundaries of his conscience. Then it surged, crashing into every aspect of him. There's a storm within. He attempted to convince himself he hadn't done anything wrong, that he had not pressed Nick. I hadn't planned. Nick had fallen victim to chance and nature. Ridge had simply let it happen. But even that reasoning tasted like ash in his lips. Brooke approached him one evening, eyes red, voice quiet. She asked if he saw Nick that day. If they'd spoken. She knew they had argued before. Ridge lied. Smoothly. Casually. He claimed he hadn't seen him since the previous week. She nodded, silently trusting him. Or perhaps not. She went without saying anything else. Ridge stood on the cliff again that night. He looked down at the peaceful, sparkling water beneath him, illuminated by the moonlight. The location where Nick had vanished appeared unremarkable. Unremarkable. It was as if it had eaten its secret completely. He knelt, picked up a stone and tossed it into the ocean. It skipped once. Twice. Sank. Like Nick. He waited for something to happen. A sense of closure. Relief. Redemption. Nothing happened. Instead, he felt the weight of his decision settle more into his chest. That day, a part of him perished in silence rather than in water. Action is not taken. In cold calculations. According to the bold and the beautiful spoilers, Taylor Hayes' new man could be the perfect retribution. Is it time for Taylor to let go and let Brooke Logan keep Ridge Forrester forever? Taylor has been trying to convince herself that Ridge will not stray and is entirely devoted to their engagement. Even yet, B&B aficionados can tell Taylor has some profound insecurities. Of course, this is logical given all of the episodes in which Ridge has returned to Brooke and crushed Taylor's heart. Ridge is set to hurt Taylor with yet another Brooke reunion, but we may hope it will be the last. It would be good if Taylor could develop some self-respect and realize that enough is enough. Taylor should know by now that reuniting with Ridge will never work out nicely. Will Taylor's next shattering setback come as a wake-up call? Will Taylor ultimately realize Ridge isn't worth all the heartache, and that Brooke will always win their love triangle? Taylor is only inviting more suffering when she returns Ridge, so perhaps she should break free from this vicious cycle. Even if Brooke and Ridge break up again in the future, Taylor must remain strong and avoid another disastrous reunion. The greatest thing Taylor can do is go on with her life, and maybe find a handsome new partner who treats her well. Taylor requires someone who is completely devoted to her, and does not view her as a backup or a rebound. There must be a lovely guy out there for Taylor, so we'll see if she can find him after all the Ridge pain. Taylor's greatest revenge approach might be to simply enjoy life with a new man on her arm, and ignore Ridge entirely unless their children are in peril. Ridge has to know that Taylor will no longer be waiting in the wings, even if he acts rashly in response to one of Brooke's numerous blunders and eventually wants Taylor back. According to the bold and the beautiful spoilers, Taylor's love life is about to take a turn for the worse, but this Ridge break could be a good thing in the long run. There's something irresistibly beautiful about a woman suddenly deciding she's had enough of the past, enough of heartbreak, emotional roller coasters, and waiting for someone to select her. Taylor Hayes has poured her heart and her into a love story that has never provided her with the fairy tale ending she desired. Ridge Forrester, with all his charm, beautiful looks, and complicated past, has always been the man she couldn't quite let go of. So who could blame her? Their friendship was built over decades of shared memories, tragedies, children, and second chances. However, there is a distinction between history and destiny, and occasionally the past is exactly where some people belong. Taylor's life has been intertwined with Ridge's for what seems like forever. Whenever they weren't together, they were on the verge of reconciliation. When they were together, something, or more particularly someone, always managed to put a wedge between them. That person, of course, is Brooke Logan. Ridge, Brooke, and Taylor's everlasting triangle has been central to so much of their drama that it has almost become a character in its own right, as if fate is keeping them trapped in an endless cycle of love, betrayal, and disappointment. But what if the best approach to win doesn't include fighting at all? What if the true triumph is walking off the battlefield and refusing to play the game anymore? That's where Taylor is now. For once, she's not competing for Ridge's attention. She isn't waiting for him to make up his mind or come in with big promises. Instead, she's turning inward, choosing calm, self-respect, and something she hasn't done in a long time: prioritize herself. Enter the potential of meeting someone new. Not a rebound, not a pawn in some stale love triangle, but a true partner. A man who recognizes Taylor for who she is: brilliant, caring, strong, and fiercely loyal. A man who does not have years of emotional baggage or romantic ambivalence. Someone who is both refreshing and steady. Someone who does not undermine her self-esteem. Falling in love again does not imply deleting the past. Taylor will always carry portions of Ridge with her. He is the father of her children and the man she once thought was her soulmate. However, time has a way of revealing facts that we can't see while we're in the thick of things. And the reality is, Ridge has always been torn. Torn between two women, two romantic visions, and two versions of himself. And that type of love, conditional, unsteady, and contradictory, does not establish a future. It's the kind that creates wounds. Taylor's recovery did not begin when Ridge returned, nor did it stop when he departed again. Her healing process began when she chose to stop waiting. Waiting for the appropriate time. We're waiting for Ridge to come to his senses. Waiting for the tale to turn out as she had hoped. And in that gap, between letting go and starting over, she discovered clarity. She mustered the strength to envision a new future, one in which her happiness is not contingent on Ridge's decisions. And now that future involves someone new. It's tremendously powerful to witness a lady rediscover herself through the eyes of someone who actually sees her. Nor as a fallback plan, nor as a safe haven, but as the main event. Taylor's new connection is more than just romance. It's about regaining her story. For years, she has been the other woman, the alternative, the what if to Ridge and Brooke's forever. However, she is no longer anyone's second choice. This new man in Taylor's life is free of the shadows of prior flames and constant comparisons to other women. He meets Taylor where she is now, not as she was 20 years ago. That matters. Because who she is now is someone who has overcome heartache, learned from failure, and emerged stronger. She's a woman who knows what she wants and isn't afraid to ask for it, or walk away if she doesn't get it. Meanwhile, Brooke and Ridge continue their usual dance. The chemistry persists, and the intensity is apparent. However, their story is worn thin from years of missteps and repeated failures. Maybe they belong together, maybe they don't, but one thing is certain: Taylor no longer needs to be a part of that story. And it is what makes her so strong right now. Allowing Brooke to have Ridge is not a concession. Rather, it is a release. Let Brooke have Ridge. Allow her to negotiate the highs and lows, betrayals and reconciliations. Let her attempt to change him, forgive him, and love him despite the mess. Taylor has been down that road before, and she knows where it leads. She is now choosing a new path. One marked by dignity, serenity, and love that does not require her to sacrifice herself. It is not revenge in the classic sense. Taylor is not aiming to harm anyone. She isn't sending hidden messages, showcasing her happiness to make Ridge envious, or attempting to compete. Her vengeance is calm, graceful, and quite pleasurable. It's in her smile when she's with someone who truly listens to her. It is in the spontaneous laughing that results from genuine connection, rather than forced reconciliation dinners or rehearsed family moments. Taylor's children notice it too. They've seen their mother struggle, hope and grieve, and then hope again. They now see her joyful. Not just fine, not just going through the motions, truly finally joyful. That is something no one can fake. And as a mother, Taylor has always prioritized her children. But now she's teaching kids what it is to put yourself first. That love is not about pain. You don't have to wait in the wings for someone to choose you. You may choose yourself. Walking away from a love that once meant everything may be considered bittersweet by some. But there is nothing bitter about serenity. It's not sad to move on when you know you deserve better. And there's something breathtaking about seeing a woman ascend after years of accepting less than she deserves. Taylor's new boyfriend may lack the history, shared children, and years of entwined love that Ridge brought into her life. But what he does contribute is incomparably more valuable. Stability, honesty, and unconditional loyalty. He views Taylor as a whole, dynamic individual rather than as part of a triangle. He brings out the best in her, not the one who is constantly suffering or questioning, but the one who is eager about the future and free of the past. It's more than just romantic. It's revolutionary, as it represents the end of an era, not only for Taylor, but for the entire dynamic that has defined her relationships for decades. And when the dust settles and Ridge and Brooke resume their on-again, off-again drama, Taylor is already miles ahead. Emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. And she isn't looking back. Taylor has always possessed a wonderful quality. Her commitment to her family, loyalty, and willingness to forgive have not faded. But now they're balanced with self-respect, wisdom, and boundaries. She is no longer open to emotional tug-of-wars or second chances that arrive too late. The truth is that Ridge and Brooke will most likely always return to each other. It's their habit, their comfort zone. And that is fine. Let them have it. Allow them to continue their continuous loop if it makes them feel alive. But Taylor no longer needs to be trapped in the storm. She has discovered her calm. And it looks like a new beginning. Taylor is discovering herself as she enters this new chapter, rather than just finding love again. Not the version shaped by Ridge's decisions, nor the one characterized by rivalry, but the version that lives independently. A woman who shines in her own way, smiles more than she suffers, and loves without losing herself in the process. And it, more than any spectacular gesture or dramatic reunion, is the ultimate happy ending. Or perhaps it's the ultimate beginning. Because proving someone wrong is not always the greatest way to exact revenge. It is being so whole, content, and alive that they are no longer relevant to your happiness. Taylor has arrived and the vista is stunning. Let Brooke have Ridge. Leave the past behind. Taylor's future has already arrived, and it's better than she could have imagined.